Right, so I think we might be live. Alyssa, let me know when you see actual broadcasting. Do a refresh on your page. Oh, technical difficulties. Gotta love it. Yeah, it's broadcasting. You might have to do a page refresh. Hello, world. Thank you for the thumbs up in the back. We are live, and just so you all know, this is my first Google Hangout, so please bear with me as we encounter, anything that could go wrong will possibly go wrong. But yeah, welcome everyone to Adventure 1, Hangout 1 in Google Hangouts. My name is Julia, as you all know, or also Super DJ is my superhero name. Some of you have bought into that, some of you not so much yet. I'm kind of still thinking about that. I thought we'd get together at the beginning of our adventures together in the Learning, Design, Technology, and Innovation Adventures in our MOOC, also called our MOLO. I think I've explained that in the course, but real quick, the reason I call it a MOLO instead of a MOOC is because we are massive, so the M stays. We aren't so open, in my opinion, because we are behind username and password in a learning management system, and we are capped, and so I don't think that's technically open. So I took a 3-week course, so we're not technically a full-blown course, so I call it a learning opportunity. Also, there is no grading in this particular instance of this MOOC. I am considering a future certificate version where some grading could possibly occur. I have had that requested, but not in this case. So a MOLO. The LDTI MOLO is our hashtag. And yeah, so we'll go ahead and get started with some things that I had on our agenda for today. I've been experimenting with trying to bring in a presentation or slides into the Google Hangouts, and I'm not going to lie, that was quite a challenge. There is a way to do it, so we'll go ahead and start the slides. All right, so I need some thumbs up from the background if the slides are broadcasting. Anyone see slides broadcasting? Someone do a refresh for me. It did what? Okay, but they're there. I'm imagining that they're there. Okay, so this is our first set of slides for Adventure 1, and hopefully you are seeing them go through. The people in the room are seeing them in my time. One of the things that I've found with the Google Hangout is that when you're viewing it through the broadcast, you're in a bit of a different time and space with that. So I may be telling you something at one point in time, and you may not be seeing it in the time that I think you should be seeing it. So especially for my folks who are in the room, don't stress about that. Folks online, I hope all is working well for you. So again, this is me. My name is Julia. I have many online identities in Second Life. I used to be there a bit. I have Julia Wiggins. I have Desert Jewel for many of my online identities. And I like to share this slide because I do believe online identity plays a really important role in what we're doing in online teaching and learning, and there's a lot that we could talk about that. I think you could probably figure out what my favorite color is from this particular slide. And yeah, we could maybe consider that maybe I'm having a bit of interweb identity crisis with all of the avatars and identities I have. As part of the slides that I'm sharing with you today, we will talk a little bit about online identity and digital citizenship. And I do like to note that I do believe in possible things, and I do believe in taking adventures and jumping out there. And as you saw in my introduction slide, I'm a forever learner, and I will be jumping off cliffs every now and again. So sometimes I've believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast, and that's kind of my motto in life. I am, as you can tell, playing a little bit with gamification. There's a great question in our moderator series about that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So instead of calling this an agenda, I'm saying we're going to level up with Adventure 1 by doing some things, by talking about how we can participate in this Hangout. Your own goals, some of you have actually contributed some of your goals to the moderator series. Looking a little bit at digital citizenship and online identity. As an online educator, I feel like it's an ethical thing for me to do, is to talk about these things. And part of Adventure 1 is setting up for success relating to PLEs, PLNs, and your e-learning toolkits. And I want to talk a little bit about design for engagement, because I think it's something that I really tried to do with this particular experience, and I'll definitely be seeking your input over time. And then there's one point on here that I added in the slides just today, and that was a quick overview of the topics in the next 4 adventures. So when we talk about this Hangout, there's a variety of ways that you can actually participate, and I don't really know what participation looks like. If any students out there in my audience at some point could let me know if you see that there are actually viewers online. Just let me know, give me a number or something at some point. But if you are watching as a viewer, there is a Q&A feature built into the Google Hangout. And if you can find that and can access it, please feel free to do so. There are some ways to have some back channel conversations by using our Google Hangout page, as well as the Facebook page that I've created for this experience. So I tend to be a multitasker and have lots of windows open on my computer. Feel free to do so in your worlds and participate in back channels if you'd like. Some folks I know actually just really want to kind of focus on maybe the slides and the conversation going on. That's just based on your learning style, I would imagine. And then the other thing is the hashtag in Twitter, the LDTIMOLO hashtag, and I actually have that running on the side here. I have a couple of iPads set up with some things I can refer to as needed. So you have opportunities to participate in this Hangout or just watch it later even. I wanted to go ahead and check in to the moderator series provided in Adventure 1 about your goals and questions. And so I have that, like I said. I thought I'd bring that up. And I can actually share through what's called a showcase app. Let's see if that will run for me. Like I said, please bear with me as I play with some of these tools. All right. So hopefully in your Google Hangout experience, if you're watching, there is an item showing that you could click on, and hopefully it's showing for you. All right, so it's also posted in the course, so you can still contribute to that. But I do have about 9 ideas. Thank you, folks, for those of you who added these ideas. I have someone who noted that they want to learn how to develop a functional online learning environment that includes live feeds, discussion, Q&A, learning modules, and global capabilities. So that's from Student 25. Thank you, Student 25. I'm going to give that a check mark, thumbs up. That's an awesome, awesome goal to have. I think that this MOLO experience is designed to definitely support some, if not all, of these concepts in this particular goal. So again, thumbs up. I think we're gonna move forward in that one. Another one that is noted is to learn how to more effectively engage learners in the learning process in the digital age, to help learners to be better prepared to engage with their fellow learners for a fuller and richer learning experience. And that one had several votes, so I agree that that one's a really cool one. And I'm actually going to talk, like I said earlier, about design for engagement, because that was a huge emphasis of mine in this particular experience, and it's actually an emphasis of mine in my life to try and create more engaging experiences. So thank you, Steve H. Dr. Phil says, to improve my teaching skills. Absolutely. I think sometimes being a learner can help us from that other perspective really explore new ways of teaching, or just interacting in that environment can help you out. Nicole from Carlsbad says, to explore new technology that I have not seen before. Nicole, I know who you are. I have a few concerns that I may not meet your goals because you're about as tech savvy as I am, so I'll be interested to hear from you at some point if you actually got anything new out of this. I'm going to skip the next one and come back to it because it's a question. To find other ideas to incorporate into a blended course, I'm designing for spring 2015. And again, Nicole, I hope we can address that one. I'm eager to design a class using technology since that is what my degrees are in. Always a lifelong learner, sponge-like is me. And that is Sonatini Jimaj from Alpharetta, Georgia. Awesome, I love it. I love fellow lifelong learners. To create ideas that I can use in implementing mobile learning solutions for training health workers in rural Africa. Pesh from Nairobi. That is amazing. I really hope that we support you in that, Pesh. To make the 21st century the era of peace, prosperity, and help those in need. Elias from Limassol, Cyprus, you have some big goals for us. That is awesome. I'm not really sure that we are going to necessarily find an era of peace and prosperity with this MOOC, but I do think that we could come up with some things to help those in need if that is a project that you want to embark upon as part of what you're doing in this MOOC. I think that is an awesome endeavor. Learn how to develop a functional online learning environment that includes live feeds. Okay, we've got that one already. To upgrade the level of teaching and the system of education in art and design. Noof. Thank you, Noof. Awesome. Awesome goal. I'm going to go back to one that was a question because I think it's kind of interesting. And it's from Tina D. from Fort Myers, Florida. And she says, does adding gamification elements, such as in this course, engage the students more? And what do you do if it doesn't? So I'm going to say that the gamification in this particular environment is really minimal. It's really just in language and a little bit with the superhero concept. That is very minimal gamification, because I do think that adult learners can sometimes be skeptical of a lot of gamification. And like I told my class last week, I had attended a research presentation from a group who did the badges with professional development folks, and they really didn't feel like they got much out of the badges. It was more of a froofy add-on, and they just didn't feel like they had the time for it. So I think we do have to be careful about this gamification concept and really interact with our learners and participants and find out how important or valuable is it. And I'm going to definitely be looking to you all to let me know, was this interesting to you, was it not, what did you like, what could you live without. I can tell you in the past that I have changed the language in my course to say adventure instead of module, and I've had people say, you know what, I really appreciate that you use the word adventure instead of module for the 500th time, or saying reflection instead of discussion. So just changing the language a little bit can be helpful from what I've heard from students in the past, but we'll have to see as far as other things are concerned, and the fact that I'm using like quests and guilds instead of groups and worksheets, for example, or activities. So I'm hoping to hear from you all what you think, and I think that it would be great for anyone who wants to go in there and post a response to any of these goals and questions, or add new goals and questions, or do a plus check mark thing with it and say whether or not that was something that you agreed with as a goal or a question. So thank you to everyone who participated in the goals and questions. Clapping to you all, and from me over here. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Just wanted to make sure that we touch base on our moderator series. There will be a moderator series every week. I hope that you participate in that. So moving forward, I do a presentation with high schoolers called Digital Citizenship, Digital Footprint, Digital Tattoo, which is a lot of fun. And there's a video there that you can watch in your own time. These slides are available to you in a variety of ways, so please make sure that you check them out, and if you need them, please feel free to borrow them as needed. But I do think it's important to visit the concept as far as when we decide to go online and do online videos and online blogging and Twittering and all of those fun things that are a lot of fun to do, all the back channel stuff that we can do. And in a class or MOOC or MOLO or whatever experience that you're taking part of that could be an online experience, many times you're asked to have a social media presence and asked to do these things online. And as an educator, like I said, I think it's the ethical thing to do to have some of these conversations, whether we're having them with adults or with children. And so I'd like to kind of remind us of some stories. For example, this tale of digital woe for Justine Sacco, where she tweeted a racist comment, seemingly racist comment, and definitely faced some interesting consequences. She was traveling to South Africa, boarded a plane, and before she boarded that plane, she made this tweet. While she was in the air, the entire world was tweeting about her and talking about her, and when will Justine land, or has Justine landed was a huge hashtag. And basically by the time she landed, within that day or so, she had lost her job. And so that was pretty dramatic. There are many conversations that you could have about this related to all aspects of it. For example, one article or blog asks, well, how come the people who wrote a big article about this, why did they do that? Why did they put so much emphasis on this woman that I think it was BuzzFeed. So this is how a woman's offensive tweet became the world's top story. And so they were questioning the people who actually wrote this story to begin with and sent it around the world. There is actually an interesting thing that happened. Someone bought her domain and turned it into a charity site for Africa. So many conversations that you could have, but bottom line, she did get fired from this job. And really, one tweet, one Facebook post, one negative, really negative thing that you put online could impact your life. So it's something to think about and something to have like a learning experience about. I actually had my own sort of negative experience in Twitter. This is the story about Desert Jewel. The bad side, I went to two conferences this summer and presented on this MOOC. And in presenting about this MOOC, I'm a little dramatic sometimes, and I say things like, well, you know, I've attended some MOOCs, and you know, they're often just another online course, and I'm not seeing as much innovation as I'd like to see, and I'm being a little dramatic about that. So in interpreting what I was saying, this person, and also I was doing a lot of presenting as part of a workshop, and because one of the things that I feel I have a strength in is creating materials and sharing them. So I had created a wiki, and I was sharing that wiki of resources as part of this workshop. So this person was posted a tweet and said, this learning design workshop is a bust. And someone else said, well, why? And she made the comment, well, a bunch of lies about MOOCs, and about 4 different comments that she made. So I saw this tweet as I'm giving the workshop, and we kind of had to acknowledge within the workshop that this had happened. And it was stressful, to say the least. It was about 26 people in the workshop, and about 3 people left, this person and a couple of others. And I received feedback from the other 2 that they left for other reasons, but this particular person was not happy with the experience. And the problem is that they paid for the experience. And so she was very disappointed, and I had to deal with that. I went back in and I replied to her tweet, and I said, I asked, can you tell me what the lies were? And so she gave me a list of things that she thought were lies. And so I responded to each of those things. And I said, can you get your money back? Because, you know, if you feel this bad about it, I'd really like for you to have that opportunity to get your money back. And she's like, you know, I'm sorry I was so harsh. I don't need my money back. And I was trying to make sure that I addressed, I felt that several of the things she said were not true, but there was one where she talked about the lies about MOOCs that I was like, well, you know what, I am being a little harsh in saying that certain things about, because I specifically mentioned a particular MOOC where I thought that it could have been more indicative of innovative design, that it was about an innovative topic and the design could have been more innovative. And so I kind of learned a little bit of a lesson for that for myself. And also it was an opportunity to address it right there. And also I had the support of several of the people who took the workshop. So I think she was not necessarily someone who needed that particular workshop, and it really was supportive of people who had much more limited understanding of MOOCs than maybe she had. She probably could have taught a workshop as opposed to taking a workshop. And so the good then was that I had support of folks, and a couple of people wrote about it. One person did a really nice blog post about it, and there was still some good feedback. And I learned for the second time that I did the workshop some strategies to maybe make it feel more like a workshop and less me presenting so much. So just know that, you know, as you go out there and put yourself out there, there are lessons to be learned, and you got to understand that you are putting yourself out there sometimes, and that people can say things about you, and you have to have some strategies to kind of come back and address the negative, hide the negative in some ways. If you put enough positive out there, that one negative comment kind of gets lost, right? So if you do a search on me, you're going to look through my tweets, that comment's going to be there, but you'd have to really search pretty deep for it, because I'm very active out here, and I try and do a lot of things to kind of build on good stuff. So the reality is if we can't hide, then we are compelled to ask, what do we want to show the world? Who and what kind of person do we want to be? And this provides us a really great opportunity to talk amongst ourselves, talk with our young people, and have these conversations. And I can tell you personally that as much as possible, I have my online identity that I've consciously thought about and made the decision. I want to do good, I want to show good, I want to be a force of good for the world, I want to change the world one teacher at a time. These are my goals and my how I want to appear in the online world with my online identity, with my digital footprint. And as someone said in one meeting that I attended, it's a digital tattoo. It never goes away. So, you know, that negative tweet about me out there is there forever, right? It's not gonna go away. So we have to acknowledge that and be prepared. And I like to talk about scenario building. So you always want to think about the worst possible scenario, the best possible scenario, and the most likely scenario, and have strategies for whichever scenario occurs. So if a really bad thing could happen, what can we do to address that? If really good things can happen, how can we make more good things happen, and what is most likely to happen? So it always comes to mind when I'm thinking about life, is that scenario building. And something that I shared with my high school students was this comment made by Maya Angelou, and she was remembering her grandmother's words, and she said, "You know what is right, just do right." And I like that on the one hand, and on the other hand, I think sometimes we've got to talk about what is right. And I think especially with our kids, sometimes they may know what is right, but sometimes they need help. And they need adults to sometimes step in and say, hey, let's think about this. Let's have some conversations. And what you're putting out there could have these interesting implications. And let's think about what is a better thing to do, possibly. So for us, though, you know, let's just do right. Let's strive for empowerment, social justice, changing the world one good act at a time, putting our best digital feet forward when using social media and navigating the interwebs. And I use the word interwebs, I mean internet. And let's be the role models needed in our world today. And I truly stand by that. And what is that impact for that then in our online courses? Because, again, I go back to, as an ethical educator, I want to make sure that my students understand their roles and their options. So I've noted this before, but I have had students who are faculty who really didn't want their students knowing they were students in a course. So for them, it was really important to have what we call a pseudo identity and not be themselves branded in online tools. And so if they were creating a video or an animation, they wanted that to appear under a different name. And you have the option to do that. You can build a pseudo identity in your online life. And I still say do good, do right, but it gives you an option to, for example, play with technology in a more comfortable way than you might if you were using your real identity. So you would see, for example, if you were to go look at my YouTube and my blogs, you would see a lot of amateur-like attempts at a lot of things. And I'm okay with that because this is what I do. But not everybody's okay with kind of amateur attempts in creating stuff. So if you aren't comfortable putting amateur materials out there, then you could consider being having a false identity. The other thing that you can think about, especially in classes that you take with me, is that you could have a public versus private identity. So, for example, I use a tool called PBWorks for my website, and PBWorks is pretty nifty in that you can get a free account and you can make it public or private. So if you want to just create private materials, you can do that with PBWorks, you can do that with YouTube, you can put a password on things and not give it public access. So if you still want to participate in all of this stuff and create social media stuff, just make sure that you look for those options to create a private account. Now with Twitter, what you've got to know about that is then we don't see what you're doing. And you won't be seen in the search, for example. If you hashtag something LDTIMolo, and you say something in Twitter, and then later you say, well, how come I didn't see my thing in Twitter? Well, that's because you put it in private, and you can only see public tweets, and there's a purpose for that. So just the knowledge that you can have a branded, meaning for myself, juliapara.com, I'm branded, my name is out there, or you can have the fake, like my Desert Jewel identity is kind of a fake identity, and you can have that public versus private identity in your online experiences. So as part of Adventure 1, I wanted you to explore your personal learning environments and your personal learning networks and build upon those over time and make sure that you're set up to participate and create and archive the work that you do in the most efficient way possible. So for example, a lot is discussed out there on the interwebs about PLEs and PLNs, and I spent a little time, and I've given you some links in probably Pinterest. If you were to look at my Pinterest board for LDTIMolo, I added a couple of articles there that I found that I thought were pretty cool. And the other thing that I did is I kind of engaged in a, let's see if I can do a screen share of it, in a little activity for myself, and let's see if I can find it. I'm going to pull it up in the background. Hold on. There it is. And I'm not sure how big that looks in your Hangout, but looks like some folks are playing in there. Go ahead and take that out, or not. For some reason, there's a table in here. I must have an interesting setting. So a lot of times folks are confused as to what is a personal learning environment and what is a personal learning network. So I just created a list for myself as to what I thought a personal learning environment might be versus what a personal learning network might be. And other people have their ideas about what all of this means, but this was my take on it. And you're free to, like, you have a little notebook, create a Google Doc for yourself, but to pull together what you think is part of your personal learning environment at this time and what you think is part of your personal learning network. And so I had things when I thought about my personal learning environment, such as my computers, my laptops, my phones, my network, my notebook. Okay, I'm acting like I have more than one phone. I don't. My phone, my smartphone, my notebooks, my online and offline books, my wiki, my website. Well, my wiki, I don't have a website yet. I'm going to have a website. My blog, Google Search and Scholar, I include in that. Maybe even MOOCs could be part of a personal learning environment. Facebook, Twitter, Digo, Pinterest, and other curation tools, email, and that's not necessarily an exhaustive list, but those are the key things in my personal learning environment where I learn about things. And one of the things that some folks were writing about is that a personal learning environment could include the tools that you use to learn about, whereas your personal learning network is more like the people involved in all of that. So my RL means real life. So in my personal learning network, I have real people, real life people, email contacts, Twitter with both people and content, Facebook with both the people and the content, the people and content in social media and curation tools that I use. But the other thing that I'm including that maybe not everyone else would include is a little bit broader, and that I call it the nodes and networks provided by search engines. Because I think that over time, artificial intelligence could be part of that, and just all of those things that I can access through the tools, I think that those are part of my learning network, and it's not all necessarily people. Some of it's been built by people, but I do think there is an element in my personal learning network that might not be people. So I think it's mostly people, but I think there is that element of nodes in the networks. So then I went ahead and added, if you go up to add-ons in Google Docs, you'll see that you can go to a place called Get Add-ons, and I did a search for Venn diagrams and added a Venn diagram tool, which opened up into a new page and then added a little thing on the right-hand side, and you might be able to see it if I go in here and do this. Let's see. I added one called Lucid Chart Diagrams, and it opened up in another page for me to actually work on it, and then it brought it into, so where it says Create, when I click Create, it opened it up into a new page. I created it, and then it brought it down underneath, and of the personal learning environment stuff, the personal learning network stuff, and then there was this place that I thought that they overlapped. So for example, I think email is a place that overlaps with your PLE and your PLN, because that's both a tool and contacts, right? And the people who email you. I thought that search engines kind of overlap. Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, because there are people and content in those things, blogs, wikis, other social media tools. So that was kind of, I played with that concept of personal learning environments and personal learning networks for a little while, because I think it's one of those things that's helpful to kind of ponder a bit, and I'm asking you to consider your personal learning environments and your personal learning network and how that's going to grow in your progress throughout this MOLO, throughout our learning opportunity time and adventures together. And I am asking you in this first week to set yours up. So my students are taking this as part of their class, and one of the things that I'm asking them to do is keep a portfolio. And you're going to want your portfolio environment set up, and that could be a wiki or a website. You want one place that you keep all of the things that you're creating as part of this experience. I know that there's about 600 people in this learning environment, in this learning opportunity, and I don't see that many people participating. I see maybe 30 people participating in some fashion or format. But let's just say 500 people start participating. Those discussion forums get pretty heavy. I don't know if you noticed that, but even with the 30-ish people we have participating, those discussion forums get really long. And that's when I say heavy, they get kind of cumbersome and hard to use, and that's often a complaint in MOOCs, is that the discussion threads get kind of crazy. So at some point, you may want to be making sure that you are putting stuff in your own personal learning environment, your own place that you can be sharing with the world. If you come up with something really awesome, you could share it. or you also, for my students, they have to bring it back to me later, because I'm not going to search through hundreds of forum thread stuff that it would just be too cumbersome. So I just encourage all of you to, as we go along, have a place where you are keeping your portfolio and keeping the networks and keeping an archive of your encounters in this experience and other experiences. So I think I've shared with you my site, juliaparr.com, which is currently in a wiki. And I'm going to go with you all on this adventure as well, because though I like my wiki website, I have heard comments from folks that maybe it doesn't do the best job of demonstrating what I do. And so I'm thinking about maybe using something like Weebly or WordPress to create something a little bit different, but also I will always link to my wiki pages, because it's just much easier to put things like my conferences and presentations and things that I create in here. But I think that something like Weebly or WordPress might give me a better blogging tool. I currently have Tumblr as my blogging tool, but I just want a more professional platform. So I'm going to be looking into mine as you are looking into yours, and I hope that that we come up with some cool solutions together to set up for success for ourselves. I'm going to take a quick water break. All right, so part of the thing about setting up your personal learning networks and your personal learning environment is knowing about the tools that are out there. And I just wanted to make sure that you all have these resources, and that is the Top 100 Tools for Learning, a fantastic site that every year gathers from educators around the world the top 100 tools for learning. And also I keep my own list, and I've got to go and add a few things because I'm learning some cool stuff from you all in the introductions already. I'm going to add Adobe Voice. Thank you to those of you using Adobe Voice. And someone used Biteable. A couple of people used Biteable in the last 24 hours. So I'm going to go take a look at Biteable and see how that's working out. And I might be adding that to my list as well. So for me, that's how I track the tools through the top 100, and then I maintain my own list. And you know, we might talk about the #1 tool, and my students already know what this is, but interestingly enough, Twitter is the #1 tool for learning on the Top 100 Tools for Learning site. And then, of course, Google Drive, Google Search, YouTube, and PowerPoint round out the top 5. And Twitter, you know, a lot of people are just surprised about Twitter and don't understand Twitter and don't get Twitter. And I just highly recommend that if you haven't entered the Twitterverse, that you give it a shot, because I just recently read somewhere, and I'm not sure how accurate this is, I'm trying to find the research on this, the research behind this comment, but someone noted in an article that I read that about 50% of all tweets are education related. That's kind of major. If that's true, that's pretty major. And even if it's not true, I guarantee you there are a lot of educators and a lot of people with expertise in different areas in Twitter, and you can truly learn so much and stay on top of what's new in your field. So I saw a comment, you can't learn to be a doctor in Twitter, but as a doctor, you can stay relevant and stay on top of what's new and what's a major in your field. Like being a doctor, you can be the best doctor by hooking into your personal learning network, and one of those tools, like I said, can be Twitter. I find that the combination of Facebook and Twitter for me is a pretty powerful combination. I'm not gonna lie, I love Facebook. There are lots of issues with some of these tools, and Facebook in particular, but I do have lots of friends and lots of news connections through my Facebook, and I did admit yesterday to one of my students, I am an information addict, and I get a lot of information through Facebook. Twitter is more kind of one of the things when I want to look for something in like specific, I'll go to Twitter and do a search for specific timely things, and of course Google search. But sometimes I can't find in Google search something really specific, and I'll give you an example, kind of a lame example, but it's an example. One day I don't know how many of you use Google, but I use Google tremendously. And on a couple occasions, Google Calendar has gone down, like one occasion that I can remember. That was a horrible day. And one day I was having issues with Google Drive. And so I wasn't sure if it was me or if other people were having the same issues. So I went to Twitter and I typed in issues or problems with Google Drive, and it might have been documents, I don't remember which. And sure enough, I saw a little stream of problems with Google Drive, and I was able to confirm that it wasn't just me. So I couldn't find it in Google search, but I did find it in Twitter search. So just kind of knowing those little tips and tricks about, what is the right tool to search in for the question you have at hand. You might do different types of searches to find the answer to your question. All right, so moving on. Wanted to chat a little bit about design for engagement. So this adventures that we are on together for the next 5 weeks is a lot about learning design, obviously, because the name is Learning Design, Technology, and Innovation. And we will, investigate different areas of design. But for me personally, in creating this MOLO, I was specifically, as I noted earlier, looking at engagement. And I look at engagement a lot in regular courses anyway, but I felt like I really had to think about it in this environment because there is so much talk about retention issues in MOOCs that because it is a free and voluntary experience, by the time I get to the end, I'm told I won't have anybody there, that it will be empty, it'll be crickets. And I can even tell from, very few people actually as far as how many people who are enrolled and how many people who are actually attending this broadcast. I definitely can see that there is an issue related to bringing people into what you're doing in this type of experience. So I did strive to design for engagement, and I'm going to be interested to see, what hits, what makes something sticky. Does it, in fact, can we keep engagement going with a certain number of participants, and how does that work? And so the things that I focused on for engagement were the use of the announcements tool and the inbox tool, providing the Google Hangouts. It'll be interesting to see if people actually view the Hangouts and what those numbers look like as far as the recordings. The other thing that I'm looking at is different types of video. So I created an instructor video, a course navigation video, and I probably should add different types of video and maybe multimedia, because I also added something like a SoundCloud into, for example, the Adventure 1 instructions or the overview guide. And then other types of video that I'm looking at are kind of, I don't know if it'll be interesting or not, but I have this thought that in order to create engagement, I kind of have to kind of put myself out there. And I did hear someone say, thank you for doing that video. It did make me feel like there was somebody on the other end. And so if those folks who aren't necessarily in here for credit, those folks who are in here doing this for free, why would you want to come back? And so I'm hoping that I can create some video experiences that you'd be like, oh, I want to go check that out. And so over the next few weeks, I will be doing some different types of video. I got a GoPro Hero camera on its way, hopefully today or tomorrow, and some stuff that I'm going to do this weekend with that, and then posting some of that video over the next few weeks. Some analogy video types of things. I saw someone post in the introductions that they liked the use of metaphor as part of this experience. So I'll just be interested to see if video helps at all. And then the types of activities that are in the MOLO are choice activities, collaborative activities, activities that I hope would be relevant to your own lives. And so we'll see if those, if folks get engaged in those. And also not just the activities, but the sharing of those products and the sharing of the things that folks create where we're building a knowledge-building community. And then I've also got the modules set for timed release. So basically, if you want to see Adventure 2, you have to come back in week 2. If you want to see Adventure 3, you have to come back in week 3, etc. So it would definitely be interested for anyone paying attention this evening in any back channel conversations, if you would go to like Twitter and just post a thought about if you've taken a MOOC, what brings you back to a MOOC experience. So I'd like to give you that kind of opportunity for a moment to think about what would bring you back to a free, voluntary experience. And take a moment to maybe post that to our Twitter hashtag. Or if you're a Facebook person, there is a Facebook page for this. Or if you're a Google Plus person, there is a Google Plus page for this. It's a good moment for a little tiny break. And I see that about 50% of all tweets are education related. Just hit the hit the tweets. So let's make sure that we note that that's not a research-based fact that I really want to find. And if you all will maybe help me with this, find anywhere that it actually says that 50% of all tweets are education related. I have an article where someone said that, but they did not put the research behind that comment in that article. So I'm a little bit skeptical about, is that a true story or not? I'd like us to hunt that down. All right, so over time maybe we can come back to this question. What brings you back to a MOOC experience? I'm thinking that our Hangout for this week is going to be much shorter than the 5 to 7 time period we have for it, and that is great with me. Just so you know, next week our Hangout will look back at Adventure 1 and forward to Adventure 2. Right now we're just pretty much looking forward to Adventure 1. And so in our upcoming adventures, we're going to look at Adventure 2 will focus on online collaboration. Adventure 3 will focus on the basics of instructional design, also known as learning design. Adventure 4 focuses on instructional design and learning design and innovation. And Adventure 5 is our opportunity to bring everything together and apply to our own needs, projects, and etc. So I just wanted to make sure that we touch base a little bit on that, even though those modules are not released. This is what we are looking at over the next adventures. Yeah, so that's it. There are some citations and credits here for the images, and mostly the images and anything that needed to be referenced. I'm going to go ahead and take a moment and look at the tweets. Stop the screen share. Say hello again. Oh, so Twitter is also at the top of the list for EdChat. Very cool. I'm going to open to my students in the room. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Anything that you need from me before we shut down the Hangout? Kind of cool because I get to have both face-to-face people, which gives me kind of energy knowing that there is at least my face-to-face students hanging out with me. I think we're all at the end of the day. All right, well, that's it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic Adventure 1. I will definitely see you in the discussions in Adventure 1 this week. And hope you all have a fantastic Adventure 1 week.